Have you ever wondered what you'd do if one day you stumbled upon photos of your own funeral? I'm Rose. I'm 55. And that night, inside a small old phone my husband David had hidden, I saw my own death. It had all started so ordinarily. David came home late, dropped his keys on the table. He looked tired, but the tension in his eyes was impossible to miss. As he took off his jacket, something metallic clattered to the floor. I bent down. An old, heavy phone had slipped and rolled under the table. I had no idea he even owned such a thing. Curious, I picked it up. The device wasn't locked. It was as if he'd left it there on purpose, waiting for me to find it. My fingers trembled as I swiped the screen, and that's when I froze. A blurry photo taken in a dark room, a coffin draped in white sheets, my eyes locked on the screen. My heart began to race, because lying inside that coffin was me. My face pale, lips tightly closed, eyes looking like they'd surrendered to an eternal sleep. I was wearing a black lace dress, the one I'd planned to wear to my daughter Emily's wedding next week, still hanging untouched in my closet. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. One thought echoed in my mind. I'm alive. But are these images from my future? And then the worst part. The date written below the photo. It hadn't happened yet. It pointed to a day still to come. In that moment, I realized this wasn't a coincidence. Someone, maybe David, maybe someone else, had already planned my death. My hands went ice cold. I gripped the phone tighter so I wouldn't drop it. My heart was pounding out of my chest. But my curiosity was stronger than my fear. I kept swiping. A new photo opened. Again, it was me. But this time, there were other faces. Silhouettes gathered around the coffin. Their faces were hidden in the dark. But one man's height, his stance, felt familiar. He looked so much like David. Why would he be part of something like this? I whispered to myself. I tried to breathe deeply. My lungs felt like they were betraying me. I shouldn't look any further, but my fingers tapped the next file on their own. This time, it was a video. The camera shook as if someone had been filming in secret. In a dimly lit hall, people whispered to one another, trying to stay quiet. The fragments of sentences I caught twisted my stomach into knots. Everything's ready. Rose's time is near. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The voice sounded like David's. But could I be sure? After so many years of marriage, could a wife mistake her husband's voice? Then another face appeared, a young man with a hard stare. When I squinted, my heart nearly stopped. Liam. David's son from his first marriage. He'd always been distant, cold with me. But here he was, among the whisperers, sitting with a serious, intent expression. One thought echoed through my head. In my own home, with my own family, something is being plotted against me. My hands shook. I wanted to slam the phone shut, throw it across the room, but I couldn't. There was too much hidden inside it. Something told me this device held all the answers. Just then, the bathroom door opened. David walked out. His face looked normal, tired. But when I looked at him now, I saw only one thing: suspicion. He tossed his towel over his shoulder. He looked like an ordinary, weary man. But to me, his face had become the mask of a stranger. I shoved the phone under the couch, afraid he could somehow read my eyes, my heart. I felt like a criminal whose hands were shaking, except I wasn't the one committing the crime. Maybe he was. "Everything okay, Rose?" he asked. His tone was casual, almost indifferent, but to me it wasn't. Every word sounded like it was covering a secret. I cleared my throat. I had to act normal. "Yeah, just a bit of a headache," I said. David gave me a brief look. For a second, our eyes met, and I swear I saw a flicker of darkness in his gaze. Then he shrugged, walked to the kitchen, poured water, opened the pillbox, like it was just another night. But for me, nothing was ordinary anymore. The phone was still under the couch. My heart was pounding like crazy. While pretending to glance at David, one thought kept repeating in my mind, if he realizes, will he silence me? When David went to bed, I stayed in the living room. My hand reached for the phone under the couch. A voice inside me tried to stop me. Stop, Rose. Learning more could destroy you. But curiosity was eating me alive. I was sure the device held more evidence, more secrets. Finally, I picked up the phone again, turned on the screen. A new folder caught my eye. It had only one word, ceremony. I stopped breathing, and my finger, almost on its own, tapped the folder. The screen went black for a moment, and that single word glowed under my fingertip, ceremony. I hesitated. My breath quickened. My ears roared. Then I gathered my courage and opened it. The first video was short and grainy. A crowded hall, white cloths draped across the floor, black candles burning on the tables, people wearing masks over their faces. I felt as if all of them turned toward the camera at once. Goosebumps rose across my skin. Then, a coffin was brought in, covered in flowers. I squinted to see who was inside, but the camera angle kept the face hidden. Still, for a second, one detail stood out. A black lace dress laid beside the coffin. My dress, my throat closed. My heart was shattering. This wasn't a nightmare. Someone was actually using things that belonged to me. The next file was an audio recording, a cracked, whispering voice. Rose is getting ready. The day is near. Everything must be perfect for the ceremony. I nearly dropped the phone. Hearing my name spoken like a death sentence from a stranger's mouth, it was a terror beyond words. But the most devastating file was the last video. My finger trembled as I tapped it. The screen flickered. And what I saw froze my blood. David. My husband was lifting a black mask from his face. Beside him stood Liam. The two of them in the middle of the crowd, silently watching as a mannequin that looked like me was placed inside a coffin. Tears streamed down my face. In a single moment, the foundation of my marriage crumbled to dust. All I could think was, if they're planning this ceremony, their next step could be my end. I quickly turned off the phone. As the screen went dark, my heart felt like it might explode. One thing was now certain. This house held secrets that didn't belong to me, and every one of them was about my death. I slid the phone back under the couch, but leaving it there was risky. If David found it, he'd know I knew everything. So later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I hid it in an old sewing box in my room, a forgotten thing no one had touched for years. But from that moment on, the air in the house changed. David began looking at me differently, as if trying to read something in my eyes. At breakfast, his hands cut the bread too hard, the knife clattering against the plate too loudly. Tiny details now felt like screams to me. Liam started coming over more often, too. Normally, I wouldn't see him for weeks, but now he was at the house every evening whispering with David behind closed doors. I didn't dare press my ear to the wood, but even a single word drifting out was enough to choke me. Ceremony. One night, Emily called me. Her voice was uneasy. Mom, Dad, and Liam are acting strange, like they're hiding something. Have you noticed? My hand froze around the phone. I didn't want to scare my daughter, but one thought thundered through my mind. Just as they're watching me, they could be watching her. And that night, when I returned to my bedroom, I noticed a small detail by my bed. The edge of the carpet was slightly lifted. I bent down. Inside, a tiny red light blinked. My heart nearly stopped. Was that a camera? The moment I saw that tiny red light, my knees buckled. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. That thing. It had to be a camera, right by my bed, where I lay every night in my most defenseless state. As tears streamed down my face, only one thought echoed in my mind. So they're watching my every move. They know every breath I take. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I quickly put the carpet back into place, trying not to make it obvious. But that red light stayed burned into my vision, like it had been etched into my eyes. I spent the night pretending to sleep, staring at the ceiling, afraid to move a muscle. Beside me, David's breathing was heavy and steady, but with every inhale I felt death breathing down my neck. Living in fear wasn't enough anymore. If they were watching my every move, then I had to watch them too. Otherwise, I might never make it out of this house alive. When I stepped out of the bathroom, David was in the kitchen drinking his coffee. Our eyes met, and a shiver ran through me. I forced a smile onto my face. He gave me the same false smile in return. It was as if we were wearing matching masks. But in that moment, I made a secret decision. I was going to collect evidence too. Later that day, after David left the house, I locked my bedroom door. I opened my own phone and silently placed my camera inside the bookshelf across from the bed. Now I was the watcher. Then I reached under the couch for the hidden phone. My heart was in my throat as I began recording each photo on the screen with my own device. My hands trembled as I saved every image. If anything happened to me, these would be the only proof left behind. That's when I heard a car outside. I peeked through the curtain. Liam's car was parked at the door. He was early. Why? When the door opened, I heard voices. David was whispering, "Everything has to speed up. Rose is sensing too much if we wait any longer." Before the sentence finished, my blood turned to ice. So it wasn't just my suspicions. They knew about me too. My phone was still recording, but one fear echoed louder than all the rest. If they found out, tonight could be my last night alive. At dawn, I locked myself in the bathroom. My trembling hands gripped the sink as I stared into the mirror, the lines on my face, the dark circles under my eyes. I was looking at a stranger. A voice inside me whispered over and over, "Run, Rose. This house will be your grave." But where could I go? If I went to Emily, I'd put her in danger. If I told my neighbor Margaret, who would believe me? It would look like the paranoia of a sleepless, 55-year-old woman. Then my eyes landed on the phone on the towel rack. A terrifying thought crept in. What if everything on that hidden phone was a trap set to silence me? What if, by watching those videos, I was walking right into their plan? The moment I thought that, I heard footsteps outside the door. "Rose?" David's voice, calm but calculated. "You okay? You've been so quiet." Every muscle in my body went rigid. I looked at my reflection. My lips trembled as I whispered, "No, David. I'm not okay. Not because of me, because of you." But when I opened the door, the smile on my face was different. Because to survive, I had to play by his rules. My phone was still recording, but every second was another risk. The voices were getting closer. David's heavy footsteps, Liam's hushed whispers drifting down the hallway. My door was locked, but one thought gnawed at me. What if they had the keys? In a panic, I shoved all the evidence under the bed and slipped the hidden phone back into the sewing box. My heart was about to burst out of my chest. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. "Rose?" David called again. The calmness in his voice felt even more threatening. "You okay? Why did you lock your door?" I held my breath, too afraid to answer. Then I heard Liam's low voice. "Dad, she knows. We have to finish it tonight." It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. My knees shook. Just beyond the door, I was hearing the whispers of my own death. The doorknob began to turn slowly. Every muscle tensed. If they came inside, it would all be over. But just then, a voice rang out from the other side of the house. Margaret's voice. She was at the garden gate. "Rose! Are you home? I brought you fresh bread." The footsteps at my door suddenly retreated. David's voice, sharp with anger, hissed, "Go for now." "Don't let the neighbors ruin this." The footsteps faded away. I collapsed onto the floor by my bed, shaking, tears streaming down my face. I'd survived today, but I knew if Margaret hadn't knocked, this room might have been my tomb. She had saved me from death. But that night, I couldn't close my eyes. Staring at the ceiling, one question gnawed at my mind. Can I trust her? Margaret? She'd been by my side since childhood. We'd shared morning coffees, secrets, everything. She'd kept me afloat on my worst days, and that was exactly why I was terrified. If David and Liam had turned even the closest person to me, if Margaret's kind face was just a mask for their eyes and ears, then I was already doomed. At dawn, I froze at my reflection again. My hair was a mess. The wrinkles on my face weren't from years. They were from the last few days. I didn't recognize myself anymore. Was I paranoid? Or was everyone truly against me? There was a knock at the door. My heart leapt into my throat. Slowly, I opened it. Margaret stood there holding a plate of cookies. But her eyes, they were careful, scanning me, like she was reading something on my face. "Rose," she said softly, "I heard noises at your place last night. Did you two fight? You look so uneasy." The words caught in my throat. I wanted to tell her everything. The phone, the ritual, the photos of my own body in a coffin. But from the corner of the doorway, David's shadow appeared. Quiet, sneaky, watching us. His eyes met mine for a moment, then he walked away without a word. A flicker of worry crossed Margaret's face. She leaned closer and whispered, "Rose, if something's wrong, tell me. Don't hold back. No matter what, you're not alone." When I closed the door, my hands were shaking. I wasn't alone. But what if I trusted the wrong person? What if Margaret really was with them? Then I'd be speeding up my own end. Just then, my phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "Get ready, Rose." Only 3 days left until the ceremony, my knees gave out. I had to stop thinking about who I could trust and start thinking about how much time I had left. On the screen, the words pulsed. Only 3 days left until the ceremony. My heart nearly stopped. 3 days. The countdown to my death had begun. I sank into the chair, fear surging through me like a flood. I knew I had to run, but my thoughts went straight to my daughter, Emily. If I left, would David and Liam hurt her? Would they use her to get to me? I pressed my hand to my head, my mind a storm of contradictions. Run or fight? I pulled out my bag and quietly started packing a few clothes. My passport, some cash, a few pieces of jewelry. It felt less like preparing for my funeral and more like planning a long trip. But no matter how far I ran, would the shadow follow me? Then I remembered the hidden phone. I couldn't leave without the evidence inside. That device was my life insurance. Without it, there would be no trace left behind. Just then, David's voice rose from the kitchen. "Rose, what day are we visiting Emily? You didn't forget, did you?" I froze. So Emily was part of their plans too. Were they trying to pull her into this game? I gripped the phone tightly. Only one thought thundered in my head. In 3 days, I'll either choose death or find a way to beat them. 3 days. The words echoed in my head with every second. In 3 days, either I'd disappear or I'd end this nightmare. I poured myself a cup of coffee and stood by the window. Through the gap in the curtain, I watched the street. Everything looked normal on the outside. Children walking to school, birds singing. But inside my house, I could hear the invisible ticking of a death clock. One name came to mind. Margaret. She'd saved me more than once. Even those cookies last night. Were they a gesture of care or a way to check if I was still breathing? But a voice inside whispered she might be my only chance of survival. I grabbed a piece of paper and scribbled a note. Urgent. Tonight, behind the old church, I added my number beneath it. Sliding it into an envelope, I slipped it into Margaret's mailbox while pretending to take a morning walk. No one could see. My heart was hammering. When I came back, David was standing at the front door. His gaze was icy. "Out for a walk, Rose?" "Yes," I said, forcing my voice not to tremble. "You've been going out a lot lately," he said. "You're tired." "You should rest." For a moment our eyes locked. In that calm but threatening stare, something else flickered, as if he knew every step I took, every breath I drew. But I couldn't let anything show. Inside, I held my breath and grabbed the phone. I began copying the evidence from the hidden device onto another drive. If I was going to meet Margaret, I couldn't go with just a story. I needed proof. I whispered to myself, this isn't just a meeting. This is either my escape or my trap night fell. The house looked still, but I felt eyes in every corner. David sat in the living room watching TV, but I knew his gaze slid off the screen and onto the mirrors, onto me. Around 11, I eased the window open. Carrying my shoes in my hands so my steps wouldn't sound on the carpet, I climbed into the garden. The wind was cold, but the fear inside me was sharper. On the way, I checked over my shoulder again and again. Under every street light, my own shadow felt like it might betray me. Finally, I reached the back of the old church. Between the crumbling stone walls stood Margaret, a small flashlight in her hand. "Rose," she whispered, "you actually came." My eyes filled with tears. Seeing her gave me a flicker of safety, but at the same time, a deep suspicion stirred. What if David knew about this? What if Margaret wasn't really on my side? With trembling hands, I pulled a USB drive from my pocket. "I brought this for you," I said. "You need to see it. If something happens to me, this tells everything." Margaret took the drive. She averted her eyes, biting her lip. And then, from the darkness, a voice. "There you are." A man's shadow emerged from behind the church wall. The moonlight revealed his face. My blood froze. Liam. Margaret's flashlight trembled. I couldn't tell. Was the fear in her eyes for me or for Liam? Liam's shadow stretched long in the moonlight. As he stepped closer, all the blood drained from my body. My heart pounded so loudly Margaret must have heard it. "You followed us?" I whispered, though I wanted to scream. A cold smile spread across Liam's face. "Rose, we warned you. You stuck your nose where it didn't belong." Margaret's hands shook. She still clutched the USB drive tightly. My eyes locked on her. Her lips parted. In a low voice, she said, I was trying to protect you, Rose." But I didn't hear her words as much as I watched her eyes. Margaret wouldn't meet mine. She kept glancing at Liam. A flash of lightning struck inside my mind. Had she been part of them all along? Liam took another step forward. The moon hardened his features. "Dad loves you, Rose, but you can't handle the truth. You need to prepare for the ceremony. If you resist, it'll be worse." My knees shook. I backed up until my spine hit the stone wall. There was nowhere left to go. Then suddenly, Margaret stepped forward. Her trembling voice turned into anger. "Enough, Liam! You've gone too far!" For a split second, hope flickered. But then, Margaret slipped the USB drive into his pocket. My stomach dropped like I'd been shot. Margaret? Had she betrayed me? As the USB slid into Liam's pocket, my throat tightened. My feet moved backward on their own, the cold stone cutting into my back. One thought echoed, "Margaret sold me out." Liam leaned toward me with a mocking smile. Dad was right. We knew you'd walk right into this trap. I couldn't breathe. I had to run. I lunged to escape, but Margaret suddenly grabbed my arms. She looked into my eyes, her lips barely moving in a whisper, "Trust me." My mind spun. The woman who just seemed to betray me was now trying to reassure me, which was real. Liam patted his pocket where the USB was. "This evidence is ours now." "You're not going anywhere." Rose Margaret suddenly turned hard. Her voice rose. "Let her go, Liam. You can't drag Rose any deeper into this." Liam's smile vanished. "You are switching sides, Margaret." As they locked eyes, I held my breath. A clash was seconds away. I had to use the moment to escape. My heart thudded as I took a step back. I saw a narrow gap in the stone wall. Maybe I could slip through. Maybe I'd live not for 3 days, but at least for tonight. I squeezed through the gap, scraping my knees, snagging my jacket. I didn't even feel the pain. All I could think was to keep breathing, to keep moving. Under the moonlight, I leapt onto the grass. Behind me, Liam's furious voice rang out, "Rose, don't think you can run." My heart was tearing through my chest. My feet pounded the cobblestones. My breath caught, but I didn't dare stop. Every corner felt like death was waiting in ambush. Footsteps echoed behind me. Shoes striking stone split the night. Sometimes I thought I heard Margaret's footsteps too, but was she chasing me or protecting me? I couldn't know. I darted into a narrow alley. My breath caught in my throat. I slipped like a shadow behind an old dumpster, clapping my hands over my mouth. Just a few yards away, Liam's footsteps echoed. "Rose!" he called. His voice was cold, but a wild impatience lurked inside. "Stop fighting. Prepare for the ceremony. There's no escape." Moonlight slid over the dumpster. That's when I saw it on the ground, a small, glinting metal key. I didn't know where it had come from, but something inside me said this wasn't a coincidence. I scooped it up into my palm. A thought flashed through my mind. Maybe this is my chance to survive. As footsteps crept closer, I held my breath. This key would either save me or my life would end here. Its cold edges bit into my palm like a blade. It was small, old-looking. Almost worn away on its surface was a symbol, a cross inside a circle. I squinted, but in the moonlight I couldn't see it clearly. My heart thundered as I thought, this isn't just a door key. This is part of the ceremony. The footsteps behind me faded. Liam had lost me, but that didn't mean I was safe. The streets were empty. The silence of the night made only my own breath audible. I had to go back home. I couldn't trust Margaret. If I went to the police, I'd look insane. My only choice was to solve this on my own. I slipped the door open quietly. David's snoring came from the bedroom. Even that sound gave me no comfort, because I knew, even asleep, he was planning. In my room, my hands shook as I hid the key inside the sewing box. I didn't put it with the phone. If they found both in one place, all my proof would vanish at once. Then I sat on the bed. I could still feel the imprint of the symbol in my palm. What does this key open? A door? Or my coffin? Tears filled my eyes. But at the same time, a new fire ignited inside me. If this key opened the door to their secret, then I would find it. And at that moment, I made my decision. When morning came, I'd risk everything to uncover the key's secret. The morning sun leaked through the gaps in the curtains, but it brought me no peace. The key I'd hidden in the small box by my bedside had spun through my mind all night. At breakfast, David's calm, almost ordinary manner made my stomach turn. He opened his newspaper, sipped his coffee. But every gesture looked like a lie to me. Every glance a threat. I excused myself from the table and went to my room. I took out the key. I examined the almost faded symbol, a cross inside a circle. It stirred a memory. Outside our town, there was an abandoned chapel. Its roof had collapsed, and that same symbol was carved into the walls. As a child, I always felt a chill passing by it. What if the key belongs there? I whispered to myself. A more frightening thought followed. Maybe that was where the ceremony would take place. Just then, the door creaked open. David stood in the doorway, his face blank. "What are you doing, Rose?" "Nothing. I was looking at old photos," I said. My heart jumped into my throat. I slipped the key into my pocket. His eyes swept the room, suspicious. Then he closed the door and left without a word. Alone again, I held my breath. My hands were shaking, but a hard resolve had taken root. I had to find out what this key opened, and if I was right, it would lead me to that abandoned chapel outside town. In the afternoon, when David left for work, I seized my chance. I put the key, some cash, and the hidden phone into my bag. My heart was pounding like mad. If I got caught, I might never come back. I knew the road out of town. As a child, whenever my mother and I passed the chapel, we would quicken our pace as if in prayer. Moss-coated walls, shattered, stained glass. And even after all these years, the cross in a circle was still visible. When I reached the door, my hand trembled. I took out the key and slid it into the rusty lock. The soft click stole my breath. The key belonged here. The door opened with a long groan. Damp and mold poured out. Broken pews, melted stubs of candles scattered on the floor. But the worst of it was the fresh flowers left on the stone altar in the center. This place wasn't abandoned. It was still in use. I moved closer. On the altar lay a black notebook. The cover was thick leather, stamped with the same symbol. I opened it. Inside, names, written in a trembling hand. As I recognized some of them, my throat tightened. Neighbors, old friends, and on the last line, one name, Rose. Tears slid down my face. So it wasn't just suspicion. My place on their list had already been prepared. I was about to close the book when a faint sound creaked behind me. Shadows slid through the crack of the door. A whisper echoed, "Welcome, Rose. We've been expecting you." The whisper iced my blood. I snapped the book shut and spun around. 3 figures stood in the doorway's shadow. Masks hid their faces. In the weak candlelight, only their eyes glinted. One stepped forward. I knew the voice. Liam. "So you wanted to see your own name, Rose? We knew your curiosity would bring you here." My knees shook. I wanted to run, but the altar was at my back and the shadows at my front. My breath snagged. Why are you doing this?" "What did I ever do to you?" I whispered. Liam's laugh boomed dully behind the mask. "This isn't about you. It's a bond that spans generations. My father is just another link in the chain, and you're next." The 2 figures behind him said nothing, but their stares pressed into me. In one pair of eyes, I caught a familiar glint. I swallowed. Margaret. She wouldn't meet my gaze. She kept her mask on. "No," I said, tears spilling. "You too, Margaret." Her fingers trembled. Her lips moved, the words barely audible. "Forgive me." My heart turned to ice. The one face I still trusted had slipped into the dark. Liam held out his hand. "Come, Rose. Don't fight. Your time is near. Not 3 days, maybe tonight." I stepped back. My hand closed around the book on the altar. In one last burst of defiance, I cried, "No! I won't be your plaything!" The door flew open. Moonlight poured in, and with it, another shadow. My heart nearly burst. David. My husband pulled off his mask and said only one line. "Rose, it's time I told you the truth." David's face shone in the moonlight. The man I'd known for years was gone. In his eyes was not love, but a cold resolve. "Rose," he said in a calm, lethal voice, "it's time you learned a truth I should never have told you." My throat tightened. "What truth, David?" That you want to kill me? The ceremony? The list? What is all of this? David approached in slow, heavy steps. Liam and Margaret drifted back, and all his focus fixed on me. The ceremony isn't a death. It's a passage, he said. A ritual running through our family for generations. One person is chosen from each generation. This time, it's you. My blood ran cold. I'm not part of your family. I'm your wife. How can that be? He dipped his head, then locked eyes with me. You're wrong. I didn't choose you by accident. Long before we met, this was already written for you. My knees trembled. A secret like this, lurking behind our entire marriage? So you never loved me? I whispered. He paused. The edge of his mouth twitched, but his answer was cold enough to split me open. Love? Love was only to keep you ready. I nearly collapsed onto the stone altar. My eyes darted to Margaret. I saw tears brimming there. She had betrayed me, but regret was leaking through the cracks. David set his hand on my shoulder. Don't be afraid, Rose. This isn't an ending. It's a beginning. But first, you have to surrender. My breath stopped. If I surrendered, there'd be no way back. His cold hand weighed on my shoulder like a chain. When he said surrender, something long silenced in me rose up. With tears streaking my face, I clenched my teeth. You made me believe in your love for years. I thought you were my husband, but I was just a sacrifice. David's gaze rested on me with glacial calm. This isn't about sacrifice, Rose. It's fate. Resist, and you only suffer more. Something snapped inside me. Fear turned to fire. I shoved his hand off my shoulder. My voice was ragged but steady. I won't be a puppet of fate. I lived with you, believed your lies. But from now on, I'll believe in only one thing: survival. Liam surged forward, fury slashing across his face. Watch your mouth, Rose! I didn't back down. I reached for the black book on the altar. If you're going to kill me, I'll destroy this first. Your secrets won't be buried with my blood. Your own betrayal will expose them. Fresh tears spilled down Margaret's cheeks. Her lips trembled. Rose, don't. I'm trying to save you. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. David's voice rang through the dark, patience thinned to anger. Then you've chosen your own end. My heart thundered, but for the first time, resistance began to eclipse fear. I clutched the book to my chest. One thought burned through me. Letting go of this means letting go of myself. David stepped closer. His footfalls echoed off the stone walls. A cold, counterfeit smile cut across his face. Rose, he murmured, that book doesn't belong to you. Give it back to us. It's the only path to peace. I shook my head. No. This book proves your guilt. As long as I have it, I have a chance to live. It's my only leverage. Liam closed in. His eyes sliced into me like knives. If you keep that book, the ceremony will be far more painful. What do you think resisting will get you? My breath stuttered, but I didn't move. Maybe nothing. But it won't let your secrets rot in the dark. People will see the truth. Margaret lurched forward, voice shaking. Rose, please, you don't understand. Resisting won't protect you. We don't want to hurt you. This is what must be, I said, tears pouring. My death is what must be. I won't submit to that. David drew a long breath. His words low and ice-precise. That's the mistake, Rose. We chose surrender. You chose resistance. And resistance isolates you. I hugged the book tighter. His frigid logic only stoked the fire in me. Maybe I'll be alone, I said, but I'll never become like you. The stone chilled my spine. David's icy stare, Liam's razor gaze, Margaret's guilt-trembling hands, all of them wanted one thing, for me to release the book. But I knew, if I let go, I'd be surrendering more than leather and paper. I'd be surrendering my life. I drew a deep breath and dropped my gaze, letting myself look small. My voice wavered on purpose. Maybe you're right. Maybe resisting is a mistake. A flicker of triumph crossed David's face. Liam nodded, satisfied. Margaret closed her eyes as if in relief. They didn't understand. Those words weren't surrender. They were a move. While I pressed the book to my chest, my mind raced. If I could buy time, I could find an opening, a glance, a lapse, the smallest loosened grip. Any of it could be my escape. Out of the corner of my eye, I measured the door. Iron hinges, old and rusted. The exit was there, but 3 pairs of eyes pinned me in place. I needed a different play. I lifted my head with a counterfeit look of acceptance. Fine, I'll trust you. But first, tell me the truth about the ceremony. Why me? David hesitated. Liam's brows knit. Margaret whispered, voice quivering, "That is the last thing you need to know." And then a spark lit in my mind. If they started talking, I might get my chance. David advanced in slow steps. His eyes looked at me not as a wife, but as a stranger. "Rose," he said, his voice echoing off the stone, "the ceremony isn't death, it's transformation. We are links in a chosen chain. In every generation, someone sees their name in the book, and before they reach the end of their path, they're brought to the other side." The words nailed themselves into me. The other side? Transformation. It all rang like a polished synonym for death. Liam stepped up. "It's your turn, Rose. Accept it, and it will be painless." My heart pounded. I checked the exit. Iron door, half ajar, creaking softly in the wind. The only way to distract them was to keep them talking. I raised my head. "But why me?" I asked. "Why not Emily? Why not you, Liam? What makes me so special?" David paused. Something glinted in his eyes, hiding a glacial secret. His lips parted. "Because you were already chosen, Rose. Long before we met. Even your birth." A sound rose from outside, a bell. The chapel's rusty bell moaned in the wind. Their eyes flicked toward the door. My moment. I clutched the book to my chest and stepped back. I lunged for the door, my heart slamming in my ribs. But just as I reached the threshold, David's voice rolled after me. "You can run, Rose, but you can't outrun fate." I pulled the door open. Moonlight hit my face. Only one thought blazed inside me. If this is fate, I'll write my own. I burst into the night. Cold air filled my lungs. My heart felt like it would rip free. My shoes hammered the stone streets, and the echoes shredded the silence. No footsteps followed, but David's voice still rang in my ears. "You can't escape your fate, Rose." I ran through narrow lanes. Moonlight spilled through broken windows. Shadows reached for me like traps. I hugged the book tight, my only truth, my only proof. Rounding a corner, my foot slipped. I nearly fell. Then, from a dim patch of shadow, a whisper. "This way." I froze. A tall man in a long coat stepped from the dark. I couldn't see his face, but he pointed to a back alley. "Quickly, Rose. Don't let them find you." My heart lurched. I didn't know him. How did he know my name? "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. He kept his face in shadow. "If you want the truth, you'll have to trust me." "That book, it isn't theirs. It's yours," I hesitated. The chapel door groaned behind me. Candlelight and footsteps spilled out. David and Liam were coming. My eyes locked on the stranger. 2 voices collided inside me. "This is a trap, and this might be your only chance." I drew a deep breath, clutched the book, and whispered, "Lead the way." I followed him into the tight, twisting alleys. Moonlight slid between buildings, shadows closing over us. Our footsteps rang on stone, and at every corner it felt like a pair of eyes watched. I still couldn't make out his face. His hat and upturned collar were swallowed by the dark. Only his voice carried. "We don't have much time, Rose. You need the truth before they drag you back." I was out of breath. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" He stopped and turned toward me in the dark. "Because I was once like you. My name was on their list, too." My knees went weak. "You survived?" "Yes," he said, "but the price was heavy. Now it's your turn, and you're the only one who can break their ritual." We kept moving. Minutes later, we reached the old train depot outside town. The door was rusty, but candlelight flickered inside. He pushed the iron open and gestured me in. What I saw stole my breath. Shelves lined with dusty ledgers, old photographs, rusting tapes. The same symbol stamped on everything, a cross inside a circle. "This is their archive," he whispered. "They've kept records of the ceremonies here for years. Your husband, Liam, Margaret, they're all in the chain. And you're the only link that can break it." I clutched the book to my chest. My eyes went wide, because on one of the shelves, a photograph stared back at me as a young woman. As I moved between the dusty shelves, my heart pounded like a drum. Each sweep of the stranger's flashlight across old ledgers and tapes opened a new nightmare. I pulled down a thick leather-bound file from a shelf, an old date on the cover, 1967. When I turned the pages, black and white photographs met me. Masked figures, candles marked with the same symbol, a stone altar. Everything was exactly what I'd seen the night before. Between the pages were handwritten notes. "Those chosen are passed through by the ceremony. Those who resist are erased." My throat tightened. My eyes snagged on a single name. Margaret. Her name was on a list from years ago. "This is impossible," I said, trembling. "Margaret is older than me, but her name is written here, decades before the stranger drew a long breath, because this chain isn't bound by age or generation." "They bend time, Rose. The ritual is not only death, it's the rewriting of life." His words rang in my head. "Bend time?" He nodded. "Yes, Margaret was chosen long ago, but they let her live to prepare you. Their plan was written long before you were born." My hands shook. I pulled another folder from the shelves. My own name was stamped on it, Rose Carter. Inside were my childhood photos, school records, even copies of private writings I had never shown anyone. My breath stopped. "Where did they get all this?" The stranger's voice echoed, cold. "Rose, they watched every moment of your life. Your choices were never your own, and now you're the only one who can break their chain." The folder felt like a stone in my hands. As I stared at the pages of my life, childhood pictures, report cards, secret writings, my knees trembled. "So, nothing ever belonged to me," I whispered. "My choices, my marriage, even Emily, were they all part of this chain?" He met my eyes. There was pain there and certainty. "Rose, their chain masquerades as fate, but fate is only their plan. If you break the chain, the plan collapses." Tears slid down my cheeks. "But how?" "They're stronger than me. They've kept this ritual alive for years. What can I do alone?" He reached toward a rusty chest on the altar and lifted the lid. He took out an old metal seal, marked with the same symbol, a cross inside a circle. But this time, a deliberate gash split the mark. "The only way to break the chain is to force your own choice upon them," he said. "Once used, this seal disrupts the ritual's order. But be careful. Use it at the wrong time or in the wrong place, and not only you, Emily, everyone will be in danger." Hearing her name crushed my chest. "Emily, My daughter. In that instant, I realized this wasn't just about my survival. If the chain held, her name could be written next. I took the seal in my hands. The cold metal trembled against my fingers. So I either break the chain with this, or my daughter will live the same fate. He bowed his head. The choice is yours, Rose. But remember, time is running out. As I turned the seal over, my heart thudded. The broken mark seemed to whisper, "The choice is yours, Rose." But what choice? If I used the seal at the wrong moment, I might endanger not just myself, but Emily too. They were targeting me now, but I knew if the chain held, she would be next. The stranger watched me in silence. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Your strength is their greatest weakness. They expect you to surrender." I lifted my head, resolve burning through my eyes. "Then surrender won't be my plan. My plan is to beat them at their own ceremony." A spark flickered in my mind. If their ritual followed a fixed order, I could break it from the inside, maybe by using the seal at the exact right moment in the ceremony's heart. But not alone. Should I tell Emily the truth? I didn't want to frighten her, but I couldn't fight without her. Keeping my own daughter in the dark might be my worst mistake. I pressed the book tight to my chest and slipped the seal into my pocket. A new voice had woken inside me, whispering, "You're not just going to survive, Rose. You're going to fight." By the time the next morning came, there was no trace of sleep in my eyes. The seal was in my pocket, the book at my bedside. I'd thought of nothing else all night. I had to tell Emily everything. It was the only way to protect her. She needed to know. I could feel it. They would come for her if the chain held. I unlocked my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed. It rang and rang. And then her voice. "Mom? You sound strange. Are you okay?" My eyes filled, my lips trembled, but my resolve held. "Emily, listen. I have to tell you something important. It's about your father and Liam. You need to listen to me very carefully." A hard, sharp knock split the air. My heart kicked. Emily's voice was still in my ear. "Mom!" What happened? Is someone there? I crept to the door and parted the curtain. I saw him, David, standing on the step with a bouquet of flowers, a plastic smile on his face. I pulled the phone from my ear and whispered, barely audible, "Don't call me. Stay safe." Then I hung up. Another knock, harder this time. "Rose? Open up, I brought you a surprise." My palms went slick. The seal was in my pocket, the book under the bed. I whispered to myself, I have to find the right moment. Otherwise, both Emily and I lose. I cracked the door open. The flowers filled my nose with a heavy scent. His usual artificial smile hovered. "Rose," he said in a calm, measured voice, "I've put you through so much lately. I wanted to make it up to you." I took the flowers, gripping them tight so my hands wouldn't shake. I managed a thin smile. "How thoughtful of you, David." He studied me carefully, searching my face. I felt as if he could hear the scream inside me, see the book I'd hidden. I dropped my gaze, hiding my face. We moved to the living room. David sat on the couch, crossed his legs. "You know, Rose," he said, "important days are ahead. I want you steady and strong. The ceremony is close." My throat closed. "I'm ready," I murmured. "I'll be just as you want me to be." The words sliced me to ribbons as I spoke them, but I said them on purpose. I needed him to trust me. He narrowed his eyes, then smiled. "That's it. The right decision. My clever Rose." He spoke like a father praising a child, but the chill in his voice rattled my bones. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a ring of keys on the coffee table. Hanging from the metal loop was an old rusted key, the kind that might fit the chapel's lower doors. My eyes lingered for a heartbeat, then I looked away, pretending I hadn't noticed. A quiet voice inside whispered, "Act like you believe him, Rose. When the moment comes, the mask will be your weapon." David leaned back on the couch, twirling a flower between his fingers. His face was calm, but I could see the darkness behind it. I, however, was fixed on the key ring, among them the rusty, old key. It looked like it belonged to the chapel's under doors, to those hidden passages. If so, it could change my fate. While David kept talking, I nodded as though listening. "Rose, as the ceremony approaches, I want to see you at peace. Don't fight, just let it flow. Then everything becomes easier. For me, everything was getting harder." But with a small smile, I bowed my head. "You're right, David. I won't resist anymore." The suspicion in his eyes loosened just a little. In that instant, my hand drifted to the table's edge. My fingers brushed the key. My heart lunged against my ribs. I held my breath. David sipped his coffee and glanced away. Silently, I palmed the key and slid it into the pocket of my skirt. The metal's chill kissed my skin and a spark of victory flared inside me. Then David turned suddenly, eyes narrowed. "Rose, why are your hands shaking?" I tried to smile. "I'm tired. Maybe I should rest." He nodded. "Yes, rest. Save your strength, because soon you'll need it." He looked perfectly at ease on the couch, but I clutched the key in my pocket and whispered to myself, "You think you're preparing me, David, but I'm the one preparing midnight." The house was quiet. I could hear David's steady breathing from the bedroom. I assumed he was asleep, but unease prickled under my skin, like he might open his eyes any second and watch me. I slipped from bed. The key was warm from my hand. Its cold weight made me brave. I crawled out the window and crossed the dark garden. Under a starless sky, I walked toward the chapel, my heart battering my chest. At the door, the lock was rusty, but the key fit at once. The click split the night. I eased the door open. Damp and spent candle wax air washed over me. I moved without a flashlight. Moonlight trickled through the broken panes, sketching pale patterns across the stone floor. I headed to the narrow corridor beside the altar. There, not at eye level but near the floor, I noticed a small locked panel. I took out the key. My hands trembled, but the lock yielded at once. A heavy hatch lifted, and a black stairway dropped into the earth. Wet, icy air struck my face. I descended slowly. Ancient symbols marked the stone walls. Most were faded, but some looked freshly traced in chalk. At the bottom was a dark room. In the center, a wooden chest. One word painted across its lid caught my eyes. Rose. My blood ran cold. That chest had been prepared years ago, and it belonged to me. My knees buckled. Seeing my own name carved onto that chest felt like a knife stabbing straight into my heart. My hands shook as I reached for the lid. The rusty hinges groaned, and the heavy cover slowly creaked open. The first thing inside was one of my childhood dresses. Pink, with lace trim, the one my mother made me wear on my birthday. I hadn't seen it in decades. When I lifted it to my face, it still carried the faint scent of lavender soap. Beneath the dress lay a bundle of yellowed papers. When I unfolded them, I saw torn-out pages from my old-school notebooks. On them were my childhood dreams, written in clumsy handwriting. When I grow up, I'll be a teacher. I'll have a daughter, and I'll name her Emily. My throat tightened. I had never shown those notes to anyone, yet here they were, hidden away in their chest, preserved for years. Even my dreams had been watched. At the bottom, I found a black photo envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were blurred photographs from past ceremonies, masked figures, and among them, David. Beside him, Liam. And in the background, Margaret. But the last photo was the most terrifying. It looked fresh, like it had been taken just last night inside the chapel. In it, I was kneeling before the altar, already part of the ritual. My breath caught. This is impossible. How did they know I was here? And then, behind me, a floorboard creaked. I spun around. At the top of the stairs, a shadow appeared, and that familiar voice echoed through the dark. Because, Rose, we never left you alone. The shadow inched forward, shaping itself in the flicker of candlelight. Slowly, the face emerged. Margaret. My eyes welled up. Part of me wanted to scream in rage. "You're one of them!" But another part studied her expression. This time there was no mask. On her lined face was exhaustion, regret, and a hidden fear. "Rose," her voice quivered, "you shouldn't have come down here. But now that you've seen it, there's no turning back." Clutching the ledger and the photos tight against my chest, I whispered, "Why? All these years you pretended to be my friend. You brought cookies to my daughter. Was it all a lie?" Margaret stepped down one stair, her hands raised. "It wasn't a lie. I did love you, Rose, but the chain bound me long ago. I was written in the book, just like you. All I wanted was to buy you time." Her words rang in my skull. Should I trust her? Or was this just another trick? She dropped her gaze. "I know your father's and David's plans. This ritual won't just mean death for you, it's meant to transform you. But if you refuse to change, they'll silence you." My chest clenched. "So whose side are you really on, Margaret?" For a moment she was silent. Then her eyes locked onto mine. "Yours. But it may already be too late." Just then the door above slammed open. Heavy footsteps echoed. David's commanding voice thundered, "Rose!" "I know you're down there." Margaret leaned toward me, whispering urgently, "You have to decide now. Trust me, or face him alone." The footsteps pounded closer, David's shadow spilling down the stairwell. Time was gone. Margaret's eyes locked onto mine, trembling. "Rose, trust me. The only way out is if we move together." My chest was ready to burst. Two voices screamed in my head. "She betrayed you 1,000 times. You can't trust her. Versus you're out of options. Alone, David will end you here." The ledger and photos were clutched in my arms. The seal burned in my pocket, the key gripped tight in my hand. My entire life narrowed to these few seconds. Margaret stepped closer, whispered, "Please trust me. I want to break the chain, too." My throat ached. The words spilled out, trembling. "Fine, Margaret, but if you betray me again, I'll destroy this book, and all your secrets die with it." She nodded, tears spilling down her face. "You did the right thing, Rose. Because now I have to hide you." From beyond the door, David's voice boomed, "Rose! Come out, or I'll drag you out myself." Quickly, Margaret pressed a stone panel on the wall. The rock shifted, opening a narrow passage. She looked back at me, whispering, "Run." The wall groaned open, revealing a cramped tunnel swallowed in darkness. Water dripped from the stones, echoing sharp in the silence. The stench of mold stung my nose. Margaret's eyes met mine. "Go, Rose, before they find you here." I pressed the book to my chest, the seal hard in my pocket. I nodded, though suspicion gnawed at me. Was she saving me or leading me into a deeper trap? I stepped into the passage. The ceiling was so low I had to crouch. Cold stone scraped my hands as the walls pressed close. My breath caught in the narrow air. Behind me, Margaret's voice echoed one last time. "Remember, Rose, you choose your fate." The wall slid shut. I was alone. The tunnel twisted and bent. It was pitch black, except for a faint light flickering in the distance. My heartbeat surged. I hurried toward it. The passage widened, leading into a small stone chamber. In the center stood an ancient table. On it lay an open ledger. Its pages rustled as if turned by invisible hands. I edged closer. In bold black letters sprawled across the page was a single line. Rose Carter, ceremony night in 3 days. My hands froze. The words branded themselves into my eyes. They weren't just waiting for me. They had already set the date. My breath caught. 3 days, I whispered. Only 3 days. Panic clawed at me as I scanned the stone walls. No exit. It was a trap. My fingers ran over the rough surface until I touched something smooth, different. I pressed it. The stone sank slightly inward. A thin crack spread along the wall. Etched faintly above it was a broken cross, the same mark as on the seal. I pulled the cold metal seal from my pocket. It gleamed in the dim light. I pressed it against the carving. The stone shuddered. A mechanism groaned. A hidden section of wall opened, revealing a narrow tunnel with a dim light flickering at the end.